Hello, friend. You know, we all go through storms in our lives. You may be tempest-tossed right now. You may be in the middle of a storm in your marriage. It may be financial. It may be physical. You know, it may be, with just your mental well-being, or you may feel like just some well-calculated evil spiritual attack has been launched against you. Well, I want to tell you, there is good news in the scriptures for you, and we're going to look at it in just a minute.
Welkom bij Antwoorden met Bayless Conley. God ziet je. Hij houdt van je. En wat er ook aan de hand is, hij heeft de antwoorden op je vragen.
We are going to be reading from Acts chapter 27, a story that is just packed with truth. The Apostle Paul has been taken into custody. He's actually being taken to Rome. He has been put under the charge of a Roman officer, and they are setting sail to go. And that's where I want to pick the story up. Now, Paul has certain companions with him, and all in all, there are 276 passengers and people aboard this boat. That's crew, passengers, everyone. And we pick it up in verse 9 of Acts 27. Listen, there's something here that is going to help you. If I can ask you, just give me your undivided attention. If you can, just marshal all your resources, spirit, soul, and body, and just lean out. Because I honestly believe God has something for you here that is really going to help you. And I believe it's going to be here in this story. So in verse 9 of Acts 27, it says, "Now when much time had been spent, sailing was now dangerous because the fast was already over. Paul advised them, saying, 'Men, I perceive that this voyage will end up with disaster and much loss, not only of the cargo and ship, but also our lives.' Nevertheless, the centurion," this is the Roman officer that has charge over Paul, "nevertheless, the centurion was more persuaded by the helmsman and the owner of the ship than by the things spoken by Paul. And because the harbor was not suitable in, the majority advised to set sail from there also, if by any means they could reach Phoenix, a harbor of Crete, opening toward the southwest and northwest, and winter there." Now, so far you've got Paul. He has this perception. It's not based on anything outward. It is not based on his familiarity with the sea and with boats and with these particular waterways. It was an inward perception. It was based on nothing outward. It was something that the Holy Spirit gave to him. And you know, the scripture says, "As many as are led by the Spirit of God, these are the sons of God." The New Testament says in the book of Romans, the Holy Spirit bears witness with our spirit. So Paul has this inward perception, but the helmsman, that means the captain, the skipper, he disagrees. And he's the expert. He knows about these waterways. He knows about the seasons. He knows everything. He knows about boats. He knows all that stuff. Paul doesn't. So he disagrees with Paul. The owner of the boat disagrees with Paul. I mean, after all, he's got all this cargo and everything they're taking as well. If he loses his cargo and loses his ship, that might, just put him on an irreversible course toward poverty. But he disagrees. He says, no, we need to go. And it says the majority, all the majority, said, well, we need to go as well. And it wasn't just that, because the next thing we read in verse 13 says, "When the south wind blew softly, supposing they had obtained their desire, putting out to sea, they sailed close by Crete." So you've got the expert, you've got, the owner of the ship, you've got the majority, and now you've got the south wind. Now that south wind, it was like a good omen to them. It was like an open door, somehow confirming that they're making the right decision and they needed to go. So they launched out. Well, it turns out the experts were wrong. The owner was wrong. The majority was wrong. And the south wind that blew softly was wrong. You can't believe every south wind that blows softly. In fact, that soft south wind took them into a hurricane force wind before it was over. Next verse says, but not long after, a tempestuous headwind arose called Euroclydon. So when the ship was caught, we could not head into the wind. We let her drive. It says in verse 19, on the third day, we threw the ship's tackle overboard with our own hands. Now when neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small tempest beat on us, all hope that we would be saved was finally given up. How you think about that? They hadn't seen the sun, not a star, not the moon, not for a day, not a couple of days, not a few days, many days. They've now given up hope. The rain is falling in sheets. The lightning is flashing around them. The wind is howling. The waves are coming over the little ship. The thunder's going off like cannons on all sides. And in the midst of that, this is what happens in verse 21. But after long abstinence from food, then Paul stood in the midst of them and said, men, you should have listened to me, not have sailed from Crete and incurred this disaster and loss. And now I urge you to take heart. Take heart. Take courage. I like the old King James says, be of good cheer. Why? Be of good cheer. Why? Because we've got a good skipper and he's an expert in these things and we can trust him? No, he'd given up hope as well. Be of good cheer because we've got a real sturdy boat and we can trust the boat? No. Be of good cheer. Take heart. He went on, he said this, take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. For there stood by me this night an angel of the God whom I belong and whom I serve, saying, do not be afraid, Paul. You must be brought before Caesar. Indeed, God has granted you all those who sail with you. Therefore, take heart. Be of good cheer. Men, for I believe God that it will be just as it was told me. However, we must run aground on a certain island. Now think about it. In the midst of the thunder and the lightning and the rain and the howling wind and the waves, Paul says, hey, be of good cheer. Nothing has changed around them. It still looks the same. You may be in the middle of a storm right now. You are tempest-tossed. Like I said, it might be financial. You're ready to pull your hair out. You don't know what to do. You've exhausted all your resources. Maybe you're have a raging battle with your health and you've just gotten a bad report from the doctor. And as you watch me right now, you're maybe even having a difficult time because how bad you feel physically. You may just feel that you're under assault spiritually, that somehow every demon in the spirit world has been, put on assignment to attack you. Listen, in the midst of that, I can tell you, be of good cheer. Take courage. Be of good heart. Why? Just like Paul said. Paul said, I believe God that it will be just as it was spoken to me. God has said something and I believe it. And, you might say, well, look, Paul had an angel appear to him and talk to him. If I had an angel appear to me, I might feel a little better about the storm I'm in. Well, you know what? You've got something that's more steadfast than the word of an angel. You have the written word of God. Heaven and earth will pass away, but his word will not pass away. God cannot lie. All of the promises of God in Christ are yes and amen from us to the glory of God. Find a promise that covers your need. Digest it spiritually. Feed upon it. Reflect upon it. Let it become a part of you. And then boldly, in the middle of your storm, while the lightning flashes and the thunder's going off like cannons, in the middle of that, stand and boldly say, I believe God, that it'll be just as it was told me in his word. My friend, his word will not fail you. It'll get you through your storm. I remember something happened. This is years ago. I had foolishly hired a gentleman, and he was a Christian, to do some major work for me. It was a huge expense. And I brought him in. We looked at everything. I said, this is what I need done. That's what I need done. I said, this is how much money I have. It has to be done for this price. Can you do that? He says, yes, I can. And we shook hands. Now, for me, that's good enough. If I shake my hand with you, if I give you my word, I'll keep it or I'll die trying to keep it. Well, it wasn't so with him. He started taking some pretty big draws on the money right away. So I said, hey, what's up? It looks like, we're not going to reach the finish line within the promised budget. He says, I'll get back to you. Well, he got back to me, says, we got a problem. It's going to be this, and this, and it's going to be this much over. And I said, I told you I don't have that money. And so we sat down and I took part of the project back myself. And I ended up doing it. I was my own contractor. Probably a month away from everything being done, I get home from an overseas trip and he's waiting for me in my driveway. And he said, you know what, I made a mistake. And he just put some papers in my hands and he left. And I went through the papers and I thought, oh no, I was in trouble. There was money that I didn't have. It was going to cost this much more to finish it. And I didn't know what to do. But man, I was in a tailspin. And that went on for a couple of days. And I was sitting on the curb in front of my house. And didn't know what to do. And I just said, God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I felt like the Lord spoke to me. He spoke to my heart. He says, you just need to do what you preach for everybody else to do. I didn't want to hear that. But I thought, you know what, you're right. And the verses that came to me from Psalm 22, that God inhabits, he enthrones himself upon the singing praises of his people. About, in the book of James, count it all joy when you encounter various trials. From Isaiah, God meets the one who rejoices. From the book of Philippians, that to let your requests be made known unto God with thanksgiving. I said, God, you're right. I haven't been practicing the word that I preach. And so right out there in front of my house, I just started walking back and forth and lifting my hands up, started worshiping God, made my request known, thanking him for the answer. I didn't know how it could possibly happen. Literally, I had no avenue to go to, had no resource to go to. It was an impossibility, it seemed to me at the time. But I just lifted my hands, and for probably 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, I marched up and down in front of my house in the street with my hands lifted high, worshiping God. And that depression broke off of me. And I guess I didn't realize how loud I'd been, because a few days later, one of the neighbors is up on his roof and he yelled something at me. I said, what'd you say? He said, I said, glory to God. And he was just doing what I was doing out in front of my house. I said, yeah, amen. Anyway, it was just within a week, God came through and helped us from an avenue that I had not even considered. A miracle happened and got us out of the problem. But you know what? I took a hold of a promise, and the promise defeated the problem. The promise gave the way out of the problem. Friend, find a promise that covers your need. Have a love affair with your Bible, and God will help you. Now, in addition, to this, there's a few other things that I'd like to just talk to you about here. First one is just about that south wind. The south wind blew softly. So many people make decisions based on, outward things that happen. They put out a fleece. And we get that terminology actually from the Bible. Gideon was called upon by God to rescue Israel from the Midianites. And Gideon's really unsure. And he says, God, look, I'm sorry, but if you're really going to use me to do what you said you'd do, I ask you to help me here. I'm going to put out a fleece. It says, and let the ground in the morning be wet with dew all around the fleece, but let the fleece be dry. Then I'll know that you're really telling me to do this. So he puts out the fleece that night. And in the morning, it's wet all around the fleece is dry. He says, God, don't be mad, but one more time. He says, tonight I'm going to put the fleece out, and tonight let the fleece be wet with dew and let it be dry all around the ground, all around it. And God accommodated him. And in the morning, the fleece was wet. He wrung a bowl of water out of the fleece. He says, okay, God, you're calling me to do it. And so people take that and say, well, I'm going to put out a fleece. If this happens, I know it's the will of God. If this and this and this line up, if this door opens, if this south wind blows softly, I know it's going to be God's will. Well, you need to realize a few things about Gideon putting out the fleece. Number one, it was in the Old Testament, not in the New Testament. This is prior to the new birth and prior to people being able to be filled with the Holy Spirit. Also, Israel was in a state of great apostasy at this time. Even Gideon's own family, they were all idol worshipers. He knew very little about God. He didn't have the knowledge that we have. He didn't have access to the Word of God like we have access to the Word of God. And the only thing even similar to this in the New Testament is where, after the resurrection, the apostles, they cast lots to find a replacement for Judas. But you know what? That was before the coming of the Holy Spirit. After the Holy Spirit came in Acts chapter 2, and they were all filled with the Holy Spirit and spoke with other tongues, never again is there a record anywhere in the Scripture of anyone practicing anything like that. No, those that are led by the Spirit of God, they're the sons of God. The Holy Spirit bears witness with our spirit. Jesus said when the Holy Spirit comes, He'll show you things to come. He'll take of the things that belong to me and He'll reveal and transmit them to you. So we look to the Holy Spirit to guide us inwardly. Even as Paul said, men, I perceive, sirs, I perceive. I have an inward perception. It was from the Holy Spirit. But they trusted, the majority and the experts, etc., and the south wind blew. I have known a number of Christians that have lost all of their fortune. They've lost their retirement, lost everything they had because they invested in a company because the south wind blew, so to speak. Friend, just even we come to Acts chapter 28, the story goes on. They're shipwrecked on an island. And they're there, and the natives of the island, the inhabitants of the island, treat them kindly. They're generous to them. They supply everything they need. And then it says that they're ready to go again. They get on another Alexandrian ship after being on this island for 3 months. It says, in landing in Syracuse, we stayed 3 days. So they're on this Alexandrian ship going. It says, from there we circled around to Rhegium. After 1 day, the south wind blew. And the next day, we came to Puteoli. So here we've got the south wind blows again. Is there any hesitation about them launching out this time? No. Why? Paul has no inward perception this time. Same south wind. You just can't believe it, friend. Sometimes the wind's telling you to do this. Sometimes it's saying do that. You need to base your actions on more than that. You need to be led by the Spirit of God. In fact, be led by the Scriptures. Virtually whatever it's going to be, the Scripture has something to say. God's Word will tell us what to do. If we will search the Word, God will speak to us through His Word. His Word, it's your roadmap for life. And so, forget about this door open and that door open and, I put out a fleece. Learn to listen to the Holy Spirit and be guided by the Word of God. When I was a brand new Christian, I needed to rent an apartment, and I found this just a cute little apartment. It was perfect size for me, and the price was right. And I was delighted to find out that the woman that owned it was a fellow believer. So I met with her and I said, look, I'd like to rent out your apartment. She said, well, Bayless, get back to me tomorrow and I'll let you know. I said, okay. So anyway, I get back with her. I actually went to see her the next day, and in no uncertain terms, she says, I'm not going to rent the apartment to you. No explanation. She says, I'm not renting it to you. And she didn't rent it. I was baffled. I couldn't figure out why. Until a couple of days later, a mutual friend said, you didn't get that apartment. I know why. I said, why? Said she put out a fleece. I said, what? Yeah, she put out a fleece. She said, God, if I'm supposed to rent my apartment to that young man, let the telephone ring twice before 2 o'clock today. Well, it only rang once before 2 o'clock. So she was certain that it was not God's will to rent me the apartment because she put out a fleece. My friend, that is not the way Christians are to be guided. And I'm not saying that you cannot recognize the hand of God, in the affairs and the circumstances of life. I mean, sometimes we realize, that the Lord has opened a door. Sometimes we realize that this has happened, but our spirit bears witness with that. Those people that I mentioned to you that lost all of their retirement. And I truly do know several couples that happened to. In those cases, I remember one couple in particular, they're talking to me, says, Pastor, we were troubled inside about it. We were hesitant inside, but it was so highly recommended. And this person said yes. And while we're thinking about it, somebody else mentioned it to us. And we just looked at that as, an open door. We figured it was a sign. But the truth is that as we considered it all that time leading up to when we invested our nest egg, said we were troubled, we were bothered inside. The Holy Spirit was trying to talk to them. The Bible says in Colossians 3:15 that we should let the peace of God, this is the Amplified Bible, let the peace of God act as an umpire in your heart continually, deciding and settling with finality all questions that arise in your mind. I think that like the other versions of the scripture would just say, let the peace of God rule in your heart. Well, the word rule there, the Greek word, it literally speaks of the job of an umpire. It's what an umpire would do in a football match, a soccer match. Say, okay, that's out of bounds. The ball's in play. That was a foul. Well, the umpire lets you know if you're in bounds or if you're out of bounds. And what is it that the umpire does? It says, let the peace of God, that comes from the Holy Spirit, let the peace of God be that umpire in your heart, deciding and settling with finality all questions that arise in your mind. Listen, if I've got a decision to make and I don't have something specific in the scripture that tells me yay or nay, I will pray and I will wait upon God and I'll listen to the umpire. And the Holy Spirit, I'll either be troubled inside or I'll have peace as I think about it and lean in the direction of doing that. If I have peace, I'll do it. The umpire's making a call. Bayless, that's fair territory for you. Keep going. If as I pray and lean out about doing that, I'm troubled inside, I don't have peace. The umpire's making a call. Bayless, that's out of bounds for you. So that's an important lesson we learn for this. But as well, I think it's important to have the right kind of associations. 276 people on this boat were saved because Paul was on the boat. God's hand of protection that extended to Paul extended to them as well. I remember listening to a Hollywood actor that had come to Christ many years ago. He began to support and travel with a particular street evangelist. And they asked him one time, because they would travel to some war-torn areas of the earth, some dangerous places to bring the gospel there. And this actor would go with the preacher. And he was asked, I watched the interview, they said, aren't you afraid to go to some of these areas? He said, well, no, actually, I'm not. I feel like God has called me to support this man's ministry with my finances and with my presence. And when we're standing in these areas, he said, I feel like I'm in the safest place on planet Earth because I feel like I'm in the will of God, and the hand of God that shields him shields me because I'm obeying God as I support him. There's a lot of merit to that man's statement and the answer that he gave to that interviewer. 276 people, souls, they're saved because they're on the boat with Paul. You read about Joseph in the house of Potiphar in Egypt. The Bible says that God blessed the house of Potiphar for Joseph's sake. All that he had inside of his house and out in the fields, his household, his business was blessed because Joseph was in the house and working in the house. The blessing on Joseph's life spilled over into the life, into the household of Potiphar, and touched everything that he had. I think about Jonathan. His heart was knit to the heart of David. And he swore loyalty to David and knew he was to be connected to David. But in the end, Jonathan chose to be with his father Saul, which I suppose on some levels is commendable, but Saul had become wicked. He had become a persecutor of David, and he had become cruel concerning God's people, and he even got involved in witchcraft and just basically had taken a path of wickedness. And because of who Jonathan chose to associate with his father who had become wicked instead of with David, he ended up sharing in the same fate that his father Saul had. They were both killed on Mount Gilboa by the Philistines. The Bible says If you walk with wise men, you'll be wise, but a companion of fools will be destroyed. My friend, choose your friends carefully. Not only will they influence you, but what's on them can get off on you. And I think even more than that, I want to be the kind of person that if you associate with me, the favor of God that's on my life will come on your life. The blessing of God that's on my life will come on your life. In fact, I pray that for those that support us, just the thought came to me right now, there are people that faithfully and regularly support us with their prayers and with their finances as we take messages like this around the world in multiple languages. My prayer is that the favor and the blessing on us and on this ministry, on what we do, comes upon you, on your household and on your family as well. In the mighty name of Jesus. God bless you.
Heeft de preek je aan het denken gezet? Dan hebben we voor jou een gratis aanbod op onze website over het onderwerp Ervaar de kracht van God. God wil je dragen als je zwak bent. Hij heeft de kracht en wil je deze kracht elke dag opnieuw geven. Maar hoe kunnen we deze kracht dan ontvangen? Bayless Conley heeft een boekje over dit onderwerp geschreven. Ontdek Gods kracht voor jou. Download het boekje gratis op bayless-conley.nl/kracht en laat God je op zijn schouders tillen.
Hier vind je nog meer antwoorden op levensvragen. Er is elke dag een nieuwe overdenking van Bayless, die je online kunt lezen of die je per e-mail kunt ontvangen. Als je op de hoogte wilt blijven van de preken, kun je je abonneren op ons kanaal. God zegen.